Shlomo Aleichem. That's what they would have heard if the risen Christ spoke to them in Aramaic. Peace be with you. Jesus said it to them on that first Easter evening when Thomas wasn't with them, and he says it to them now when he is. Peace be with you. We don't know why Thomas wasn't there that first Easter day. Thomas called Didymus, the twin. What does that mean? Was Thomas an actual biological twin? And if so, how come we never meet the other one? Or knowing the importance of nicknames in the Bible, is calling Thomas the twin telling us that Thomas had two sides to his nature? Was he moody, indecisive, always in two minds, or wearing two faces? Who knows? But he wasn't there that first Easter day. But a week later he is. The disciples are in lockdown, not quite the same as us, but certainly stuck and afraid and trying to work out what's going on. But the locked doors do not keep Jesus out. He stands among them and he greets them in the same way. Peace be with you. And Thomas is among them this time, and so Jesus' invitation to Thomas comes. It's an extraordinary thing what Jesus says to Thomas. This is my translation of the Greek, and I hope it conveys something of the force of what Jesus says. Jesus said to Thomas, "Bring your finger over here and see my forearms, and bring your hand and put it in my side. Don't be faithless, but faithful." Now the language here really matters. It's not just a question of Thomas putting his finger, putting his hand. Jesus is really forceful. He says, bring your finger here, bring your hand here. It's as if the text is trying to convey something to us about Thomas's reaction, his nervousness perhaps, but the persistence of Jesus' challenge to him. Now, if you were worshipping with us last Sunday, there might be some bells ringing here, because of course this is the complete opposite of what Jesus said to Mary in the garden. Jesus says to Mary, "Don't touch me." And a week later, Jesus says to Thomas, touch, grasp, probe, explore, believe. Now, as last week, I might be about to toy with your mental imaging a bit and potentially ruin the Renaissance. My home church in Wolverhampton was dedicated to St. Thomas. And for years, I sat looking at a stained glass window, which I could see from where I sat in the choir stalls, and when I was playing the organ, in the mirror on the organ console. And the stained glass window showed this scene, Jesus and Thomas. Jesus standing there and Thomas kneeling, putting his finger in the wounds. We had a very talented curate who wrote hymns, and he wrote a hymn that went to the tune of Angel Voices. The first lines were, "Thomas knew you when he touched you, saw in you his hope." But I'm afraid that neither the window nor the hymn are right. Look at the gospel text, because what happens is vital. Thomas doesn't touch Jesus. Jesus invites him to, challenges him to, but he doesn't. One or two commentators on the text, oddly to my mind, think that he does, but most agree. The invitation comes, but the response is not physical, it's verbal. As Tom Wright puts it, one small verbal step, but a giant leap of faith and theology. Thomas says what he sees, "My Lord and my God." Not doubting Thomas, believing Thomas, believing like no one else had ever done before, or possibly since. I was in Potsdam a few years ago, and when I was there, I saw Caravaggio's painting of this scene. It's not something you want to do just before lunch. Thomas is probing around Jesus' torso in all too vivid a way. It's a great picture, but it's not what the gospel says happened. And Jesus' next words to Thomas confirm it. He says, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Doesn't say because you touched me. He says, have you believed because you've seen me? Now, in her trauma that first Easter morning, Mary could only see her teacher of old. She says, Rabboni, teacher? But Thomas sees what no one has seen before, not only his Lord, but also his God. And then come the words, not only for Thomas, but for you and for me. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. That's us, surely. Well, yes and no. Remember Gerard Manley Hopkins' poem? I greet him the days when I meet him. And I do. In the doctors and nurses and care home staff and key workers giving of themselves in the hope of saving others. Out on my daily run when people are generous and the birdsong is rich and the sunlight dapples on the cam. And when we are together, I meet him in all of you, which is why this hurts, this separation, because not only can we not see one another in the same way, because we are separated at the moment, it means we can't see him in the same way. We can't meet him as we did. And that's why it's so hard. But we are together still his church, still his people, still Great St. Mary's. But we're not together because of mobiles and laptops and tablets. We are together because of our faith. It is our baptism that makes us one, not electronics. It's his spirit. It's our fellowship in the gospel. And it's the fact that behind locked doors and in fragile hearts, he appears still. And he says to us what he said to Thomas and what he said to them. Peace be with you.